perfect Shy Yeti.
I love mouses.
How are you? Hope you're fine. It is the Shy Yeti show.
Okay, where you go?
Why have I got horns?
Oh no.
Oh, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Oh, there's going to be some drama ahead.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record. Is it metaphorical? Is it deep?
Wow, the show's getting slower than natural.
Good boy. He's got all that shy. Right.
You're such a win, 100.
Blimey, Governor. It's the Shy Life Podcast.
Oh my goodness.
Hello, Pete.
I told you so how he does it. Excellent.
761.
761. Bonjour et bienvenue au podcast The Shy Life.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Shy Life Podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How are you doing? I'm all right. I'm afraid, though, I'm back in jail, but luckily I'm sharing a cell with a good mate. Hi, birthday twin, Andy.
Hi, Paul. Looks like they got us again.
Yeah. How long
Another 6 months.
Oh, God.
Another 6 months.
Yeah. What was
No
it?
chance of parole.
You're not allowed to ask me what I did because we're not supposed to.
We're not supposed to talk about the crimes, are we?
No.
How long have you got, though?
I got 6 months too. I think we might have been arrested at the same time.
For the same crime.
I think I saw you. I saw you being dragged away.
It was the same police. Well, maybe in 6 months' time, what will that be? Will that be it'll be lovely and warm, it'll be summer, and we might get paroled. We might be able to tiptoe from the front gates of the prison together.
As long as it's not Australia, then it might be cold, then it might be winter, although winter in Australia still warms.
Yeah. Unlike here where I am today, where I feel like I'm in a washing machine, Paul. It's that noisy outside. All the rain hitting the window and the wind and stuff.
If you arrive in Oz, then just follow the Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, let's run that theme music. Yes, we will be talking about Prisoner Double H again, and about some of the more of our favourite characters and the plot lines that they were involved in. All right, run that theme music.
Darling, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
My favorite person is you.
Keep it rolling.
Yes, but it's a positive thing, Paul. The High Life, the Shy Life.
I'll go anyway for a potato.
Hello, Captain. How are you?
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, he hasn't found out my secret. Yes, he has.
I love the Yeti test. It's my favorite thing.
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Yeah, I'm strangely drawn to Yeti Uncle John's ankles as well.
I could eat my body weight in crisps.
Has anyone seen my hot sausage?
It's all gooey and meaty and yum.
It was enormous.
I don't think I'm ready to speak about it.
Here comes the grizzly.
It's the Shy Life Podcast.
It's all wait for it to begin.
Alright, it's alright, I'm just being an alien.
I like that.
Hi there.
Marvelous, Paul.
I was sitting back, smelling nothing.
Well, here we are. I have to tell you that we're back by popular demand because our last Prisoner episode was one of my highest downloaded episodes of 2020.
I can't believe that. I can't believe that your usual listening demographic are even interested in Prisoner.
I don't know. I think we might have scared them away, but because you were really good and posted on forums, we might have got a completely new listening base, with one or two exceptions. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, or maybe it was a mixture of two different listening demographics. I'm not sure. I must admit I wasn't sure if we were going too niche, but apparently not, which is good. So yes, we're going to talk about some of the characters that we didn't talk about last time.
Yes,
but I've also,
and I have made a list. The
ones we have.
So if we do drift onto people that we've already done, we can just do them again.
Yeah. A big siren's going to go out like when there's a fire in the prison or something.
Turn that alarm off.
I don't know that she's. I want you to confirm this because I'm using other sources. But
are you cheating, Paul? Are you looking stuff up on the internet?
I am, because I haven't got to some of the. It's been a long time since some of the characters or exact name. I'm just going to. I know what I'm like. I'm just going to go. Oh dear. What's that name of that one? Who did that? Who did that? And then in that way.
Well, it's all a bit of fun.
I'm still progressing with my watch. I am.
How far have you got? Because last time we spoke, weren't you still in the first year? And
yes, I'm still in the first year, but yeah.
Weren't you at the Melinda Cross episodes where she uses Karen's name and has an abortion? And
oh yes, that's right.
You were in that, and she calls it who's the guy? Tomcat.
Yes, yeah. I believe I am on episode 65. And it says the officers challenge Fletcher's new policy. So this is when Davison's handed in her notice, and
on one of the occasions,
yeah, and
Jim's taken over,
yeah.
And then he's always in that brown suit, isn't he?
Yeah, and it says Karen visits Mum's daughter because Mum's not being well, and Karen is going to go and live with Mum and
Judith
Ann.
And this is where, when she goes to the door, it's a different actor. It's not Madge from Neighbours anymore, is it?
Right.
Obviously, that they couldn't get Anne Charleston back just for one scene, so she must have been busy doing a play or something, because it's obviously long before Neighbours started. So they have a different actress playing the daughter, Lorraine.
And it also says the Salvation Army has reported that Doreen's mother has been trying to find her, and Doreen's mother is going to be played by Anne Haddy, who played Helen Daniels in Neighbours and Rosie in Sons and Daughters.
Sons and Daughters, yeah. So you've got those episodes to look forward to. And can you remember the name of the perfume?
Oh no, I can't.
There was a perfume, wasn't there? That sorry if this is giving spoilers away, but isn't that how Doreen remembers?
Oh right,
Doreen remembers that the woman's a mother because she smelled, and she said, "This was a perfume I used to wear when I was your age," and she's like, "But that's the perfume my mum wore." I mean, there must be millions of people wearing that same perfume.
It's not just made for one person.
Just because you smell somebody's perfume, oh, you're my mum.
I think there are maybe 79 episodes, so I'm within the last.
So it's building up, isn't it? What's he called? Jeff Butler.
Yeah,
they're such good episodes.
And there's Pat comes into it, I remember, and Roz has just shot that woman who shot.
Oh, I love those. I love where she goes into the toilets, doesn't she? And she shoots her with a gun, and then when she goes to trial, she gets killed by the daughter, doesn't she? And that's Roz.
Yes, yeah, and
it's really quite dramatic, these episodes. There's quite a lot of guns and people getting shot in toilets and people getting beaten up in toilets. And
you know what? I can completely understand what Roz did.
Absolutely.
They're like, you're not guilty. You killed somebody. And like, yeah, but she killed my mother. Don't you think you'd get into trouble? I didn't really think about that. I mean, I guess it kind of doesn't matter what happens to me because at least I got my revenge on.
There's that whole story arc, isn't there, where they've got the woman who witnessed the murder in the toilets. She's the only witness to the shooting of Jackie Coulson, and the McNally gang kidnap her or something, and they're about to kill her, and she manages to escape. And it goes on for a few episodes, but ultimately they buy her off. And if I remember, in the courtroom, she says something like, "Well, I didn't see anything because I didn't have my glasses on. I'm short-sighted." And you think, you haven't got glasses on now, love.
How do you even know you're in a court? You could be
Yeah.
could be a Tesco's or you know.
Maybe she had good contact lenses, I don't know, but it just feels a bit bizarre that you'd go out on a night drinking without any glasses or contact lenses, but you would come to court without them in. I don't know.
So contact lenses in 1979 would be like wearing like double glazing or something in your eyes.
Do you know, that reminds me, when you watch the Young Doctors and you see them in the bed with the blood transfusion, and they're actually using glass bottles of blood. Not plastic, and you just, wow, how old is that it's not even plastic squidgy packets of blood, it's actually glass bottles of blood. That's crazy, isn't it?
I remember years ago my brother was little, he had quite a lot of hospital visits and stuff, and then it was when sort of, because for years you couldn't just buy The Exorcist, it wasn't that easy to watch, and
right.
Then they started, so they just cleaned it up and it was on at the theatres again, and my brother and I both liked horror, but he said the scariest thing he found about The Exorcist was seeing how antiquated all the hospital scenes were.
The medical equipment.
Yeah, in the 1970s, which was before the time that he was there, but it must have still been similar in the early 80s, probably to some extent, and reminded him of horrible visits.
It just shows you how much things have come on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you look at the technology they've got now compared with what it was back then, but you know, they were still saving people's lives. They still saved Judy, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
When she goes in for her, was it a pacemaker she has fitted?
Oh yeah. Is it Judy who can't go too close to the
yes, the dryer,
the dryer in the laundry?
And there's a really funny scene, isn't there, where I can't remember which character it is, but it's one of the more silly ones, and she says, "Oh, Judy, you can't stand by the dryer because it'll affect your pacemaker." And she's like, "Thanks for saying it out loud." Now everybody knows. So somebody grabs her, and then I think, is it Maury Winter maybe, kind of like says, "Oh, fat guts, I'll push you next to the dryer," or something like that. If you don't do as I say, I'll put you by that dryer.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I'm going to give you a quick test because you're good at the names.
Go on then.
In my list here, I have she is the first ever prisoner seen in the series, being chased through the corridors.
Oh, that's Sally Lee.
Yes, I'm just consulting my
Sally
list.
Lee.
Yeah, don't know that.
And
I remember.
I think I heard Val Lehman say in an interview that so she, as you say, she's the first person that's ever seen, but she ends up committing suicide within the first episode, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And they needed a scene with her later in the episode as a dead body, and they were going to use somebody else to lie in the body bag. because if they'd used her for the whole episode, then they would have had to pay her more. And to get around from having to pay this actress more money, they actually was like, right, well, you're dead, so we don't need you now, so somebody else can like pretend to be your corpse. And apparently Val Lehman stepped in and said, this is outrageous. You've just killed this poor girl, and now you're like trying to do her out of giving her a full day's pay, so it's not on. And she actually fought for the actor to be the dead body as well, so that she would get paid for the full episode.
Yeah, Lisa.
So right from the start, it was a bit of a budget thing, I think.
Lisa Alderhoven
she plays another character who really annoys me. Is it Cheryl that she comes to the halfway house, and is she pregnant and on drugs or something? And she's got a boyfriend, and
it says that the first halfway house was named after her. But I guess we're only just
Sally Lee.
But
they don't mention that. They don't mention it much, do they?
No, I wouldn't. I didn't know that. But apparently, her best known role was in The Young Doctors. But
okay,
she appeared between 78 and 81. So
I can't think who she was.
What she was. Nurse Julie Holland.
Nurse Julie Holland. Wasn't there a doctor called Dr. Holland as well?
Yeah.
Was that his girl is Mrs. or something then?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Perhaps it was his sister.
She was in 420 episodes. Sorry, 428 episodes. She would have been in the show. Well, this is the thing with Wikipedia. One of the references says 78 to 81, and one says, and then in the sort of roundup of her career, it says that she was in it from 79 to 81.
Well, unfortunately for us, she's more memorable as Sally Lee, playing a dead body.
Yeah, she was Cheryl Armstrong in 1983. She was also in Cop Shop twice. I guess twice, but some of them are two-parters, aren't they, and things on Cop Shop, maybe?
Usually the story runs either 2 or 4 episodes. Because it was 2 a week, so it's you either get 1 week stories or 2 week stories.
Kathy Curtis in 77 and Bronwyn Payton in 1978.
They'll have just been guest roles. They weren't because they had like that was made by a different production company from Prisoner and Neighbours, and they worked differently. They had like a core cast, but then they also had a guest cast as well, and the guest cast focused on. I suppose it fits better with the premise of it, where you've got like the police staffer, the core cast, and then the criminals or the victims are the like the guest artists. But quite a lot of the scenes in Cop Shop, the guest artists would have filmed amongst themselves, so that took the pressure, I think, off the core cast in the filming, because it was only like only half of it was them, the other half was like the guest artists.
It makes me sad. In a way, when you see, like, if she was good enough actress to be in 428 episodes, you can't. I really hate it where you look down their career, and then the other things they did were like really small. They might have been supposedly higher profile shows, but if you go for, I would rather be on The Young Doctors as a main character than be nameless secretary in big budget movie.
I know.
It's kind of insulting, I think. I mean,
it is really, isn't it?
Yes. For every Guy Pearce and Kylie and Jason Donovan who leaves Neighbours, there were lots who were just as good. You wouldn't have been able to. Kylie and Jason, and I don't even think Guy Pearce necessarily shone as being so much better. It was their sort of learning. They were perfectly good characters and perfectly well acted, and they probably got better. But that's the case of pretty much every character I've seen on Neighbours, and some of them start pretty bad, but by the time they leave, they're your favourite character, and you can't believe you ever thought they were bad, sort of thing, or it's completely lost to the past.
And I suppose for those of us that were like in Australia at the time, having watched Sons and Daughters, you mentioned Guy Pearce and Kylie and Jason, but I suppose the fourth one was
Annie Jones.
Annie Jones, and she was probably out of the 4 of them. She probably had the higher profile because she'd just done 6 months in Sons and Daughters, hadn't she, or 9 months or something, playing the girl of the man that Beryl's going to marry. So she'd already had a major role in quite a high profile soap opera, hadn't she, before? Whereas the others hadn't, had they?
Yeah, although everyone had done bits and pieces, but they hadn't had sort of such big parts. But Annie Jones is back in Neighbours now, and has
is she?
Oh, and it's really lovely, sort of seeing a 50-something Jane, and because she's slightly older than you and I, but not that much. But we can remember her when
absolutely. It was like that quadrant of them, wasn't it? Because I think we were teenagers at school and they were teenagers at school, although the actors were probably a couple of years older, and because we were a couple of years, maybe 18 months, 2 years behind anyway, it felt like they were like us, like that generation. It did to us anyway at school. It felt like they were like whereas I suppose like Paul and Julie, who were Scott's older brother and sister, they were already like adults because they got married and stuff, or were older. And then you'd got like the younger children like Lucy, who was obviously like quite young. But for those four, it felt like they were the same.
Well, of course, the
same as us.
Yeah, I mean, of course, with Lucy, they had about 3 different actresses, but the one who played her from the 90s still plays her today.
Does she?
She's not like in it as a regular, but if there's a plot because I think she's almost higher up in Lassiter's than Paul Robinson.
Than Paul.
So, and she's like in the New York office, and she had like when they wanted to write off one of the gay characters, he went over to have a baby with her because she wanted a surrogate, and so yeah, she still comes back for big plot lines and stuff when they need some sort of Robinson influence. And
what's the viewing figures like for Neighbours now? Is it Amazon it's on?
Yes, I don't really know, but I see that it's like second number 2 in their ratings.
Good.
But, I mean,
good. It's all changing, isn't it? I know a lot of. I was reading the thing the other day. I won't say who it was or like what the program was, but a lot of linear TV, as I think they call it, what's broadcast live. A lot of people are getting a bit anxious about the future of that because so much viewing now is people streaming stuff, and you watch it when you want. And I mean, we stream everything. I got rid of my satellite service. I don't pay anything for it. I've just got a couple of apps that I pay for. Yeah. And we just watch stuff when it suits us. I watch very little live TV, and I think it costs a lot to make live TV, and I think a lot of them are getting anxious with the viewing figures dropping, and I don't know what the future is of it.
I want to ask you about another character. I'm not
go on then.
I'm not sure if she is necessarily a favourite, but she's played by somebody who I really like, and also became quite a big star, if she wasn't already. I mean, I don't know how much of a star she was at the time, but the character Angela Jeffries, as played by Jeannie Drynan.
It's interesting. I think she's a fascinating character. She's a lawyer, isn't she? And she's brought into it does she come into it to represent Karen's case?
Well, it's all to do with it's all to do with the halfway house as well, and it gets a bit sort of.
And we have those scenes. I mean, clearly, on the credits at the end, it says that she's obviously got some fashion deal, hasn't she? She's like wearing certain designer label clothes or something. So she's clearly a high profile actor, isn't she? And they've spent a bit of money on. I know the sets where she lives, that you can see that there's a lot more fancy ornaments, and it's done up a lot better. And there's like I think there's like a black chandelier or something in her living room, and she's a high profile character and a high profile actor that they've given her own wardrobe. And I think she's an interesting character, isn't she? Because is she the second gay character that's in it?
Yeah, and it's sort of a bit going to sort of areas where other characters are sort of jealous because they think that she's going to make a pass at Karen, and even Karen comes around to sort of thinking she'd quite like that to happen, but she would like to have a relationship with her, which is kind of comes a bit out of nowhere, but she isn't sleazy, and she isn't trying to like seduce Karen or anything. In fact, she's kind of saying,
she's the complete opposite. So the first lesbian gay character that we've seen in the show was Frankie, and obviously Angela is the complete opposite because she's not violent. We don't know if she's had a troubled life, but she's been very successful. She's a senior lawyer in her practice. But she talks about the fact that she doesn't have time for emotions because she doesn't want the fact that she's gay to affect her career, and she's almost like she doesn't want people to know, and she doesn't have a partner, and it's almost like she's switched off that side of her life to focus on her career. But then you've got this, like you've already mentioned, you've got this whole dynamic that people are insinuating that is Karen safe living with her. And I suppose what they're trying to show is that the prejudice of the time, that a lot of people would have thought that if you were a poor, naive young woman and you go and live with some wicked old lesbian, you're going to end up being corrupted by her. And I suppose same for men as well. If you were a young lad and you went and lived with a gay man, that you'd be at that risk of being somehow corrupted or groomed by them, and I mean that feels quite clumsy watching that now compared with, I suppose, the way that TV would show things today. I'm sure there's still people out there that think like that, but I don't think that would be portrayed on a soap opera now, that they've brought a gay character in and people are saying, oh, you can't be seen with them because people might think you're one of them, or do you know what I mean, or that you're at risk in some way.
Because just before, when we were talking about what episodes I got to watch next, just before that, that's when Karen goes to live with Mum. She gets quite upset. Karen gets quite upset because she doesn't want to leave Angela, and then she even says, "I think I love you," and Angela ends up saying, "Look, come back in 10 years' time, and I'll think about it."
Yeah.
She'll feel the same in 10 years. So she, she is in no way trying to manipulate or do.
She's a very interesting character, but she makes me feel quite. I think it's quite sad in a way that they didn't have it would have been great if maybe Jean Vernon had moved in with her and they'd got together or something, or something like that, or it turned out that her lover was overseas or something, and she then came home, and it's just, I just feel really sad that she's there on her own and she's lonely and she's doesn't feel she can have a relationship because it'll affect her job and people will talk about her. And I just think that's really sad, and that just shows really, I suppose, how difficult life has been for the gay people over the years, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember if that was it or whether we see her again. But
she comes back briefly, doesn't she? Later on, I think. Because don't they give her the I'm forgetting all the names. Pat O'Connell.
Oh, right.
She's representing her as well, isn't she?
Okay, so,
and I think she does this really good scene where she says, Mrs. O'Connell was put in jail for helping her husband and her son, who were armed robbers, and they've now been released for the armed robbery, and yet she's still in prison, and yet all she did was just give refuge to her husband and her son. She didn't shoot anybody, she didn't rob anybody, she didn't threaten anybody. All she did was look after her husband and son. And you got her for consorting, and she's still behind bars, and they've been released. And that's quite, I suppose that's a statement on how maybe women are treated more harshly by the law than maybe men are. So she's a very interesting character. I really like her, and she wears some really great clothes, and her flat looks immaculate.
yeah. I want to just very quickly go through some of her other roles, but I think we might as well come in.
The big one was with Bill Hunter, isn't it?
Big one is Muriel's Wedding.
Muriel's Wedding, yeah.
That's what...
And she looks so different, doesn't she, in Muriel's Wedding?
Yeah, it's only it's about, I guess it's 15 years later, roughly.
You really wouldn't, and I've said to people that's the mother from Muriel, and they're like, no. Really, because she's obviously such a good actor that she can play completely different roles and just completely nail them.
Yeah, and Muriel's Wedding is one of my favourites as well. So I'm very used to seeing her in that, because she's quite a tragic character in that. She's the mum who always sticks up for Muriel. Muriel isn't honest a lot of the time, and And
I suppose going back to playing Angela's quite a tragic character, isn't she? She's successful, and she's obviously made her career, and she's she's achieved what she wanted to achieve. But for me, there's that sadness that she's on her own.
Yeah. Before we move on to another character, I just wanted to, because Jeannie Drynan was in one or two other of our favourite, but her career her career on film goes back to like 1966, so she must have been relatively well.
Yes, and she plays sister in The Young Doctors that's got mental health problems, that's impersonating Sister Scott.
Oh yes, that's what
I'd forgotten about that.
And I was going to say,
and that's it's such a good storyline in a way, isn't it? So just for your listeners, Sister Scott is like the head matron in the hospital or something, and people start getting really random phone calls, and it's clearly Sister Scott's voice, and she says something like, "Take those files down to reception now," or "Tell Dr. Denham he needs to do this by 3:00," and it's completely wrong, and it causes loads of problems in the hospital, and people start to think that Sister Scott's lost it, and then she starts ringing people in the middle of the night and threatening them, doesn't she? And they're all like, what's going on with you? And it's clearly not her doing it. And it's another sister in the hospital is she trying to do a smear campaign to get her sacked or something?
Well, I'm yet to see this. Is this on the box set?
Sorry.
No.
I ruined it for you.
No. I know about a lot of the plot lines. But I presume it's one of the ones on. So I'm actually going to get to see it if it's on the box set.
Yes, and I think one of the episodes is one of those ones like on Sons and Daughters where the original tape was damaged, so they had to use a few scenes from something that someone's done on a VHS.
Yeah. She was
so the quality's really.
She was Sister Margaret Evans for 15 episodes.
That's it, yeah. Sister Evans.
But she was in things like Skippy the Bush Kangaroo. She was in Division 4. Which I've heard of. That's a sort of police drama?
Yeah, I've never watched that. That's like a classic Australian police.
Yeah, she was in 10
There
episodes.
was Division 4 and Matlock, wasn't there? They were the two that people talk about.
She was in Matlock as well. But she was. I think she was played about 10 different characters in Division 4 between 69 and 74, and she was in Matlock Police and was in 3 episodes of that and played 3 characters. She was in Spy Force, which I haven't really heard of. She was in Class of 74, which I've heard of.
I've heard of that, but I've never seen any of it. I think there's a Class of 74 and a Class of 75, isn't there?
Yeah, that's definitely a soap. Young Doctor. She was in Cop Shop. She played Demetria Coogan in 1978. So you'll have seen her. Do 2 episodes of Cop Shop.
What did you say the family name was?
Coogan. Demetria Coogan. In 1978.
I've got in my mind, so one of the main characters in Cop Shop is Mike Giorgio. And I can't remember whether she plays his mother in one episode, but it might not be her. There's quite a lot of Greek characters in it. There's quite a lot of I suppose at that time, and we see it in Prisoner as well, don't we, where there's racism towards Southern European. It's quite ironic, isn't it, that European people that have settled in Australia are racist towards other European people from other parts of Europe. I know Moni's a character where they explore that, isn't it, where she talks about not wanting to let them run a milk bar and you know, the Greeks work all hours and they take all our business from us, and just think you still hear some of that stuff today, and it's but you're in Australia and it's weird, isn't it?
She was also in Holiday Island, which I think was I think I've sort of heard of that. She was in A Country Practice, but only a couple of episodes. The Flying Doctors, 1 episode.
What wasn't Holiday Island the one that was so bad that they filmed it and they had to get people to pretend it was like a tropical beach resort, and it was so cold that they had to everybody's breath was like frozen, and they had to. I think did they have to put ice cubes in the mouth to stop them, to kind of cool them out, so that they weren't constantly. You weren't seeing the vapor of their breath because it was so cold when they were filming.
Yeah. It says that Nick Tate was the main actor, or one of the main characters from Space 1999 and Sons and Daughters, and Tom Oliver was the next main character. Don't recognise so many of the other names, but yeah, those two are the sort of, and then there were guest stars in. Sorry, we're wandering off in different directions, but I think that's fun. Amanda Muggleton was in.
Was
in Holiday Island as a guest. Brian Blaine from Sons and Daughters was a guest.
Yeah.
Bryony Behetz.
She's been in everything.
Yeah. Shantai Conturi. Now, why do I recognise Chantal Conturi? I recognise her. She was in number 96. That might be why I recognise the name.
Amanda Muggleton's in a couple of episodes of Cop Shop, and it's really weird seeing her play different roles because she plays. I think one of them she plays a bikie girlfriend. So I suppose it's a bit like the Maxine character from Prisoner.
I think it's a shame that some of these shows aren't available. The amount of people on this, we just enjoy watching it to see the people. Because the guest stars are crazy for, like, famous people that we would know. Christine Amore.
It's Jean Vernon. We already mentioned her.
Deborah Lawrence.
What do you think of Jean as a character? Because some people love her and some people find her really irritating, don't they?
Yeah, I don't mind whether there's some background to her connection with the show, because she was in it and then she moved in with Meg, and then suddenly she's not there, and then suddenly she comes back again, and I don't know whether it's to do with contracts or it's
like they brought her back for a couple of episodes and then she disappears again, doesn't she?
It feels a bit weird. I want to see Holiday Island. We've got Deborah Lawrence, who was in Prisoner and Home and Away. Diane Craig, she was definitely in Prisoner.
She was a really good actress. I mean, when you look at the characters she plays in Prisoner, where she's Jackie Nolan, the interior designer who Jim falls for, and then she's a nun, isn't she? Much later on in the series, Sister Selby. They're completely different.
You've got George Malaby. He was in Prisoner. Jane Clifton, she was in Prisoner. Judy Nunn, Julia Blake, Julianne Newbold, and Leslie Baker.
That's Money, isn't it? And also, was it Tinkerbell, the other character she plays?
Actually, Lisa Alderhoven was also in it. Lisa Crittenden was also in it.
Wow. This is all Holiday Island?
Yeah. Maggie Dents was in it. Murray Fields.
Was it like a holiday resort and you'd got different people?
It sounds a bit like Fantasy Island, whether it was a sort of Australian attempt at that.
Yeah. I don't think it ran for very long, did it, Holiday Island? Whenever I've heard anybody talk about it, they kind of laugh at it and say it was a disaster.
But it was very quickly. We've got Peter Topano, we've got Ray Meager, Rowena Wallace from Sons and Daughters, Tina Bursell.
So it's all the big names, isn't it?
And that's just the name. I mean, there might be some of the other names are less recognised, but Holiday Island was cancelled after 64 episodes. The set was later revamped and turned into the Lassiter's complex featured in the soap opera Neighbours.
So it's at the same studios that was a Prisoner, isn't it?
Yeah, that might explain. I don't really know.
Because I've seen a thing that says that the original Lassiter's hotel complex was literally round the back from, where the prisoners have the prison garden and the barbecue, and you've got like those steps and like the bin store where Sandy and Kate had their final scene together. That was literally round the corner from where Lassiter's was.
It does sound very much sort of like the guest characters come in and bring the plot lines, and then there's some characters.
And you know from having watched Prisoner and Neighbours, it's not always warm outside, is it?
No.
I mean, how many scenes in Prisoner were they sat outside with big jumpers on and cardigans and trying to keep warm and stuff?
Did we talk about all of the main? We talked about Lynn, and we talked about Lynn and Karen.
We spoke about a lot of the early characters, didn't we, last time? I wonder maybe about perhaps some of the later ones, because I know you also like the later series of it, don't you, as well? Is there maybe anybody in like the final year or so that you like particularly, or when you've got that whole kind of Wentworth Warriors gang thing going on?
Well, you start us off, because it's been longer for me since I've seen those later ones.
What do you think of Lexi as a character? Because a lot of people, she's a real people either really love her or hate her character, don't they?
Sorry, I'm just trying to go back to roughly when she came in. So
I think, is it around about 5:20 or something? And when she first comes into it, she's dressed as Boy George, which is like really bizarre, isn't it? To see, it really dates it. And apparently, at the time when it was shown, people were kind of saying, this is like last year's thing, because Prisoner was filmed so many months in advance, and I suppose they planned it a few months in advance to that. So when they had that thought about somebody dressed as Boy George, by the time it finally went to air, he didn't look like that anymore, and he didn't have the dreadlocks and the ribbons and the kind of clothes with paint splattered all over them. He changed his image by then, and it just looked really it looked out of date, didn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, Culture Club were sort of big in sort of 82, and her episodes didn't go out till February 1985. So according to this, but obviously, yes, as you say, it was recorded in advance. But
and while we mention her, that shows how attitudes to, I suppose, gay people have changed and change as time goes on, because I remember when she first comes into it, one of the other prisoners makes a comment like, "Why are you bothering with him? He's a, well, I won't say the P word, but a quite negative word about gay people." And she's like, "Well, so what if he is? Who cares? It's like, it's not an issue. And like, look, he's an international celebrity and he's made loads of money. Like, what's it like? Why would that even be an issue?" And I think that shows was that like 1984, 85? I think maybe by then it shows how attitudes were perhaps starting to change a bit.
Yeah. She was played by, do you pronounce it Pepe or Pepe?
Yeah.
Pepe Trevor. Pepe Trevor. And she's Penelope Trevor.
And she had to fight to get the part, apparently, because everybody always points out that her mother was one of the producers. And a lot of people have said, "Oh, she only got the job because of who her mother was," and actually, it's the reverse. Her mother didn't want her to get the job, and she had to fight apparently to be recognised as a kind of at the auditions and stuff. And the mother apparently wasn't happy.
Yeah.
But she was apparently the best person for the job, so they went with her.
Yeah, she was born in 1960. She acted from 1977 to 2005.
She's in some episodes of Cop Shop, and she's a lot younger in that, and plays sort of quite one-dimensional, silly schoolgirl type characters that are, I think, in Cop Shop, when they needed a teenage girl that was going to get abducted or beaten up or something, then she was one of the actors that they went to for that type of role. But there's never any depth to them, and there's never any development of the story other than kind of a victim of crime.
Yeah, it says she played between 79 and 81. She played Lindy Turner, Sarah Moore, kidnap victim, Sue Dawson, and Sue Powell, but she was also in the Sullivans and Skyways. And the Country Practice, but it doesn't say to what, probably so like small parts. It was in Blue Healer.
I think she's quite a complex character, because there's times when I watch it, and as being older and watching her now, I don't mind her so much. But when she was first on, I couldn't stand her. I just found her really irritating and really loud and really obnoxious. But now I get that's what they were trying to show.
Yeah.
That she's a brat. And she's clearly not had the same life as a lot of the other younger characters that end up in prison, because her background is a bit different, isn't it? She's not some street kid. Her mother's been this high-class prostitute who's... Yes, she's been a bit rough with her, but she's brought her up and instilled a few values in her.
She's sometimes compared to Bobby, isn't she?
But they're very different, aren't they, Bobby? Her and Bobby.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about. I've seen people say, "Oh, who do you prefer, Bobby or?"
I think I prefer Bobby, to be honest.
Yeah,
I feel like her character's more. I know she whinges and whines a lot as well, doesn't she? But
and I think that's probably the only reason. I think that's almost the only reason that they're compared, because they're
and the age of them as well.
Yeah.
And I suppose for a while they're kind of like the young character that's got the fashionable hairstyle, that's got the trendy clothes, and you look at some of the clothes that Bobby was wearing when she was on remand, when she's got those pink jumpers on and her hair's all bleached. Isn't there one story where she tries to bleach her hair with bleach from the laundry and it all goes in her eyes or something? Never mind, rinse it out with water, it'll all be fine. Next episode. But I like Bobby's character more because I think she's clearly had a very bad upbringing. Isn't there an abusive father and a little sister, and she's been on the streets and taking drugs, and isn't there a scene where she says like most of her friends are dead now?
Yeah. I mean,
a lot of them had died from drug overdoses or like bad heroin and stuff.
There are certain templates of characters that, like, you get the older character, like, and they're trying to find different replacements for Lizzie when she goes, and I mean, Maxine was sort of like
Maxine,
the Bobby before Bobby as well. I mean, she had similarities and differences, but.
If you ask me if I prefer Bobby or Lexi, I prefer Maxine, really. She's the best out of the three of them, by far. And I think has got the best storylines as well.
Confusingly, Bobby is played by an actress called Maxine.
Yeah. And she passed away, was it earlier this year or the year before?
Yeah.
So for one of the younger cast members, she's no longer with us.
Yeah, because a lot of them have been interviewed by the Talking Prisoner podcast.
And I'd recommend that to anybody to watch them. I mean, yes, I know some people get a bit fed up listening to all the other things that they've done, but I quite like that. I quite like hearing all the other, what plays they've been in and what they wanted to do when they were growing up, and I like to hear the different.
Well, that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to sort of cross-reference this time, because you're not necessarily aware that we're always talking about how that actors cross over these, or they're in multiple shows that we like, but some of the ones we don't even say so well known are also.
You mentioned some of the stuff that Pepe Trevor had been in. What about Maxine Klibben-Gaitis that was Bobby? What else was she in? Because wasn't she in Neighbours when it started?
Yeah, she was Paul Daniels. Paul Roberts.
You like this? Not a lot.
She was.
Was she Debbie McGee? Sorry, Paul.
She was Paul Robinson's first wife, but
and I don't know whether I made this up, but seem to have it in my mind that she left Prisoner to go straight into Neighbours.
Yeah, that's quite possible.
Or it was she pretty much left Prisoner and then was. I don't know when production started on Neighbours though.
Yeah, she died in April 2023, age 58. She was Terry Inglis in Neighbours.
And I don't really have any memories of her or what. I remember didn't she pull a gun on someone and shoot them? Yeah. But other than that, I don't really have any memories of the Terry character.
No, she was in 69 episodes. Was
she one of those ones that when it was on Channel 7, she was like a main character, but then when it got dropped and Network 10 bought it, they didn't bring her back?
Yeah, and I think
like when they changed Scott Robinson's actor.
She was in Prisoner from season 5 to season 7, from 83 to 85.
That's quite a lot of episodes, isn't it?
108, yeah.
She comes in pretty much. So you've had the era where Bee's been sent to Barnhurst, and then Lizzie leaves, and you've got Mr. Bridges, the prison officer, who turns out to be a bit of a psychopath, really, and all of that. And she comes in at that era, doesn't she? And her and Sonia go to Sydney, don't they? And they get put in the back of that van, don't they? And they're going to kill Bobby. And then isn't Ferguson just conveniently on holiday in Sydney? And she walks up to her and she slaps her hand. And you can see Maggie Kirkpatrick's almost struggling not to laugh, because she sort of walks up to her and you see Bobby turn around and she's like, and then Maggie walks up and slaps her hand on her shoulder as if to say, you're nicked. I've caught you.
Yeah.
But obviously, Bobby's really relieved that that's happened because they've been forcing her to work on the streets as a prostitute, and I think they're threatened to kill her if she doesn't get more money for them or something. So it's probably the freak turning up is probably like her savior.
Yeah, she was also in the Flying Doctors, Home and Away, but these were only like one episode.
She was in Home and Away,
but only like
Wow.
one episode in 1988. She was in something called Family and Friends, which only lasted a season. That was another soap opera, one of those ones that you because obviously you know about all the ones that are successful, but it's only when you start looking into it you realise there were loads of other soaps that didn't last. She was in Blue Heelers.
I think one of the last things she did, and I've watched a few of them, but there's a guy called Tim who's like a director, and he did an online. It's on YouTube. It's something to do with a cleaner. It's like a celebrity cleaner, and it's like a bit of it's a drama. It's like a bit of a pastiche thing as well. But she's in that.
Would it be The House Cleaner? That's a
Yes,
movie.
yeah.
2013. She played Wanda.
And Phyllis is in it as well from Prisoner, and there's a few of them that were in Prisoner, and I think he basically picked these actors and put them back together in completely different story. I might give that another watch actually, but it's out there on YouTube. Worth a watch if you like Prisoner. Shall we just stick to the character names? We mentioned Lexi and Bobby and the things that they were in.
I just want to mention, I think she's probably slightly she's probably Bobby's era. Marlene Rabbit Warren, played by Genevieve Lemon, because I know that she certainly has
she was in the Young Doctor. She was in the Young Doctors, wasn't she? Wasn't she something like Nurse Zelda?
Yeah, she was in Neighbours too, I think. Zelda Baker in Young Doctors, Marlene Rabbit Warren in Prisoner, and Brenda Riley in Neighbours.
I liked Marlene. I thought she was I know a lot of people say she's like a replacement for Doreen as a character, and I suppose she's got that annoying voice and always doing practical jokes, but I think if you can put up with that, I think it needed her. It needed somebody like that in that era, because you'd got a lot of dark stuff going on with Mari Winter and her drug dealing, and then Bev Baker, shoving knitting needles in people and killing them, and Edna poisoning her. You'd got quite a dark era, hadn't you? And I think the Marlene character was a bit of I think her comedy side was better than some of the other attempts that they'd had to bring in a bit of comedy with like Mervyn and Joyce, and I think the Marlene bit worked better.
Time-wise, I can't remember how she fits in with the character like Pixie, who's also, I would have thought they had elements of each other's characters, so maybe they weren't quite at the same time. Although
there's an overlap, isn't there? Because Marlene's definitely there when Pixie gets raped and goes off to the psychiatric hospital. That's in the era where the men are in the prison. So
and Marlene marries,
and she marries one of them. So there is an overlap, isn't there? But you're right. There are similarities between them, aren't there?
Oh, of course. The other thing that she's in, Genevieve Lemon, is this was actually just before her Young Doctors. She was in an episode of Sons and Daughters, episode 136. I spotted it. She's in the car park when John is like working for the man, as it were, working for his mother at that company,
Oh, Ramberg.
Yeah.
And I posted on the Sons and Daughters Facebook group and nobody responded. I saw that you'd liked it, but does anybody actually ever know what Ramberg Industries did?
No, not really.
Because it's I know John does PR for them and Wayne gets a job being a personal assistant for them, and Patricia and Fiona are shareholders, and Gordon works for them. But what do they actually do? And they've clearly got a transport division because David's driving for them. But are they manufacturing? Are they delivering? And then all of a sudden Ramberg goes bust, and you think, but what did it do? I don't think they ever said, did they?
No,
nobody knows.
I always wonder whether they brought her in because she was in Young Doctors in the last year of Young Doctors. She comes in late, and then she's one of those people who then ends up in. There's various members of the Young Doctors cast that end up in Prisoner, including the guy Matt, who she marries, who he was also in Young Doctors around the same time, I think, as her.
And similarly, after Cop Shop finishes, a lot of them end up in Prisoner, like Paula Duncan and Linda Stoner and the guy who ends up being the governor.
Oh,
what's his name? The actor's called Peter Adams, but the character was Bob Moran.
Oh yeah.
So they were all in Cop Shop together, and so it's like that finishes, and then the other one, the one that was Mike Giorgio, he becomes he's a script writer. You see his name appearing on the Prisoner credits as a script writer and like a story writer.
She was in Home and Away in 2018. Let's go back. I'm jumping ahead. So she was in. It doesn't say how long. Doesn't say how many episodes she did of Young Doctors, but she was certainly in it at the end. And that last year and that's sort of the last 2 or 3 years what I watched back in the 90s.
And that was after she'd been in Sons and Daughters.
Yeah, but literally one episode in Sons and Daughters. Jennifer Hicks.
That's unusual, though, isn't it? To think that somebody, because I have in my mind that you'd have been in the Young Doctors first, like Cornelia Francis was Sister Scott, and then she became Barbara Armstrong in Sons and Daughters. But with Genevieve Lemon, it was the other way round.
Yeah, but it was almost like she was just somebody who called out to John in the car park, and maybe they thought, oh, this she's got potential.
John, what does this business actually do?
No, he did. He quickly walked on.
I've no idea. I've no idea.
Yeah, she did 74 episodes on Prisoner, and
wow, that's a long time, isn't it?
She was in The Flying Doctors. She did 41 episodes of Neighbours as Brenda Riley, and that sort of about 7 or 8 years into the show, 91 to 92. And then she
got a good ending in Prisoner, though, didn't she, Rabbit? She got married, and Matt didn't they buy a nut farm or something? I don't know whether that's an Australian euphemism for something, but if you go and farm nuts grow nuts on a farm or something.
Yeah, she's still doing things. She's on a show called Return to Paradise at the moment.
I think she popped up at one of the Prisoner. You know when they get the cast together every year, or some of the cast, and they do an interview with them in a hotel somewhere in Melbourne. I think she's been to one of those, but never seen any interviews with her.
It's really busy. She has got a lot of things.
That's good.
That's good. Yeah. She was in 10 episodes of Home and Away in 2018, which was when I was watching, but I probably recognised her at the time. But I think she's done quite a lot of theatre in Sydney. She's done like The Seagull, and she's done a lot, actually.
Sons and Daughters was filmed in Sydney, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Ramberg would have been in Sydney, and The Young Doctors was. So I wonder if she was one of those actors that they had to, on the end credits where it says, crew stay in the I don't know if you're sponsored by a hotel, Paul. Are we allowed to mention them? But a lot of them have got our cast and crew stay at the such and such hotel. I bet she was one of those people that they'd have to fly her down from Sydney to kind of do Prisoner, and then she'd be in the hotel all week, and then fly her back on a Friday night or something.
She won. I think the theatre does really seem to be a very strong point. She won the Best Actress in a Musical. Billy Elliot the musical in 2007.
Wow.
She won, and again in 2008, and again in
Different type of award. Yeah, she won lots of awards in
for Billy Elliot, but she's got a lot of awards for
plays. I don't know, but it's good to see, because unfortunately sometimes not everyone's career goes from strength to strength.
No.
Oh.
It's good to see that, isn't it? That she's obviously had like a really long and active career.
Yeah, I mean, as we were saying, for every Kylie and Jason, there are other people who left to go to America, and you maybe never saw them again.
We mentioned Lisa Crittenden, didn't we? Because I suppose she's another one of the actors in Prisoner that played that kind of the young character, and that was Maxine, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The character was Maxine. And obviously she's got quite a memorable role in Sons and Daughters as well, hasn't she, Lisa Crittenden?
Yeah.
But did she disappear off the radar for a lot of years? And I don't know whether she still acts or not, because I've always thought she was a really good actor.
Yeah, and
I had some really good storylines and really good.
I guess in a way I knew her better from Prisoner than I did in Sons and Daughters, because for a long time that was the era of Sons and Daughters that I hadn't seen until, although I might have seen one or two episodes, but that was the part of this, the middle of the show was what I hadn't seen. So that was one of the things that was great about the DVDs coming out.
I seem to think when we were speaking before, not on your podcast, but didn't we have a conversation about the character she played in Sons and Daughters, and didn't we feel that there was something that they could have done differently, or not the character, but I think the kind of backstory, because I think by that point they were bringing in people's nieces and nephews from different places, and you think that's a bit random that someone's great auntie third removed turns up from Brisbane or something. They could have just had a new neighbour, couldn't they? Or they could have brought somebody fresh in. It didn't need to be someone's distant relative. I just have in my mind that we discussed it and we thought that would have been better if they'd done that character not as a relative of the Palmers, but as almost like a...
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember.
You're right.
There was something that we discussed, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Because it was a really good character, wasn't it?
And she came in after Patricia had left, but before Alison.
Yeah.
Or was she still there when Alison first came to America?
I know I've mentioned this before on your podcast, but she's involved in one of the most horrific storylines ever done in Sons and Daughters, and probably in any Australian soap opera, over the kidnapping of Beryl's baby. And when the baby's returned, doesn't she steal it? Well, maybe I'm getting a bit jumbled up with stuff, but she is responsible for Beryl thinking that her child is dead, isn't she?
Yeah, and
that's so awful.
But whilst things are kind of bad, or she's done things that are hard to go back from, she then sort of starts to have a relationship with Charlie's son, who's a policeman, and had things not gone bad, or she had things not caught up with her, she could have had a nice relationship, but she couldn't have a nice relationship. And so it's kind of she's another quite tragic character.
Very much so, and a really well defined character, and really quite like you say, tragic.
you asked what else Lisa Crittenden was in, she actually was an extra in 1975 in The Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Wow, I'd love to see that. I've heard so much. Isn't Sigrid Thornton in that film?
I think I haven't watched it for a while.
I'd love to see that. I've never seen it.
In 1980, she was a regular on The Sullivans, playing Sally Meredith. Don't know how many episodes. As I say, she was in Holiday Island in 2 episodes as Susan.
They've all been in Holiday Island.
She was in The Restless Years as a recurring guest role of Bryony Thompson, although it's only 3 episodes. But she was in it from 81 to 82, and I think that's one of the episodes that is on YouTube because there were a few people who went into Sons and Daughters who were in The Restless Years, including the guy who played John, and the last episode is on YouTube, and I've watched that.
So she'll have gone from that to do Prisoner, and then on to Sons and Daughters.
Yeah, whereas
because she's got long hair when she first came into Prisoner, hadn't she?
Yeah, I can't even remember that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that whole era again. But
and you should really watch her interview on Talking Prisoner as well, because it's in 2 parts.
Yeah.
I get a question read out because he always asks the fans if they want to put questions through. And I can't remember what I asked, but she made a point of answering it, and I was like, wow, that's amazing to think that an actress that was in a show 40 years ago that you've watched so many times and you think's really good, she didn't have any knowledge. I think I don't know, I might be making this up as well, but I seem to think she says that she wasn't aware how popular Prisoner was for a long time, or she still got fan mail, but it hadn't. I think the penny hadn't dropped quite how well loved she was as a character, and she hadn't realised how big the Prisoner fanship was around the world, and she'd kind of not been part of that for a lot of years, and I think now she's aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, most shows have some sort of fan following, but not every series that has a fan following has such a well-developed fan following as and particularly perhaps if a show only ran for 8 years, which is still a long time. But I mean, I think with something like Doctor Who that's been going on for over 60 years, in the old days, sometimes it took some of the actors a while to start turning up at conventions. But now you notice people from the new show are turning up a lot quicker because I guess the word has gone round. There is money to be made from. I don't mean that in a nasty way. It's still money. It's all money, and everyone has to live. So, but I don't think there's so much snobbery amongst actors about. I'm not saying that in the old days, but there were definitely some people who sort of kept away from conventions, and it wasn't necessarily a popular show for a time, or at least not publicly perceived as, towards the end it was a bit more of a sort of laughed at.
But I think as well, for some of them get that what they've done, it might be something that they filmed 30, 40 years ago that they maybe only did for 6 weeks, but the impact that that's had around the world is massive, and they understand that's had an impact on people's lives. And I guess for a lot of actors, that's why they want to get into it, to kind of, not to influence people, but to be able to use their skill to have an impact on someone's day. Even if you just watch something once, you can still be affected and moved by it, or learn something from it. And I think for some of them, I think they really get that, don't they? And that's why it's important to give something back to the fans.
So after the rest of this year, she did a couple of episodes of Country Practice. Then she started Prisoner. Then she went back to a Country Practice and did another couple of episodes.
Wow.
In 84. Then she started Sons and Daughters, 85 to 86, and did 149 episodes.
As many as that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. But then I suppose 140 episodes of Sons and Daughters isn't the same as 140 episodes of Prisoner, is it?
She did 91 episodes of Prisoner, so running time, she would have been on screen more probably on Prisoner than Sons of Daughters. But not a lot of difference. But then, she did a few other things. Then in 92, she was a regular on Shortland Street.
Yes.
For 2 seasons, playing Carrie Burton. And then she did things in the late 90s. She did like an episode of Xena, Warrior Princess. She was in a couple of episodes of Blue Healers. actually 3 episodes of Blue Heelers in different seasons, and then it sort of seems to peter
There's
out.
like a long gap where
2003 until that Talking Prisoner thing. But she currently resides in Melbourne with her husband and 2 sons. But
it's really difficult when anybody says like who's your favourite character in Prisoner. It's really difficult to think of who would you pick, because there's so many of them that were well written and I like different people for different things, and it's almost like, well, which episodes are you on about? Because if it's early years, I might have this one as a favourite, but if it's later years, I might have another. But I think Maxine does stand out as one of my favourite characters probably in the whole show, simply because she has some of the best. What they put that character through is some of the best things of the whole show, like the whole romance that she has with Tony, where she falls in love with him at the halfway house. So she's this really tough bikey girl, but she falls for this social worker, and I mean that's heartbreaking. Those scenes where she's like cooked him a meal and he's just not interested in her. It's so tragic, isn't it? And then some of the other stuff that the character went through, and even the kind of final episodes where she's with Tinkerbell and she can't walk properly, and sadly the end comes for Maxine. I think that's a really good few episodes as well as the relationship she had with Lizzie. That was just amazing, wasn't it? The youngest and the oldest in the prison together. They were just such good friends. And
you need to have those age ranges. You can see why they tried to sort of find replacements for those sort of template characters.
But I think that Maxine-Lizzie relationship is better than Lizzie and Doreen. I know that might be quite controversial to say that, because I guess Lizzie and Doreen were quite an infamous double act at the start of the show, weren't they? And ran for a lot of episodes together. But I actually think Maxine and Lizzie works better because maybe they've got more of a similar background, in that although Maxine's a tough biker, Lizzie had a really tough life when she was young as well. They've been brought up in the same kind of school of knocks. The more kind of equals.
Yeah. There are a couple of other characters I want to remember. We've definitely got other characters we can talk about for another episode. But I do feel we ought to talk about Reb Keane, partly because partly because Janet.
And sadly, she died this year, didn't she? Yeah.
Yes, I feel that we should talk about.
I mean, right from the minute she comes into the prison, you know that Reb Keane is a character that is going to really take it to a different place.
She comes in episode 422.
So that's like the same era as Bobby and Cass, isn't it? And sort of Minnie and that era. Once Bea and Lizzie have gone.
Yeah, she's there for until 589, but I think there's a bit of a break. She gets electric shock treatment at the other prison, doesn't she? Yeah.
They get rid of her and then they bring her back.
And because of course she's so different in other things I've seen her in. She was a big part of Neighbours as Lynn Scully.
She plays a really tough character, doesn't she, in Prisoner?
Yeah, and whereas in Neighbours she's like the mum.
There's vulnerable sides to her as well, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like if you think about those episodes when she's on the run and the boyfriend and his mate kidnap Ferguson's father, don't they? And hold him in a shack somewhere, and then it all goes wrong and there's a robbery, and she's got the money, and I remember there's a scene where she's got this, because she's a wanted escaped criminal, she's staying at a friend's house, and the friend's boyfriend's due to come round. So she gets into a bathrobe, puts her hair in a towel, and puts a face pack on, so that he won't recognise her from the police photographs. And her relationship with that friend, she shows a vulnerable side then, doesn't she? Because I think, is there a scene where she says, I've been a rubbish friend to you. I've like ruined your life. I've turned up on your doorstep and caused you a load of hassle, and I feel really bad for that.
Yeah.
So I suppose when she comes back and she's a completely different person, and she's not confident, and she's quite she tries to commit suicide at one point, doesn't she? I think you've maybe seen that. There's always been that bit of vulnerability in her, that she pretends she plays this tough kid, but actually underneath it all there is a bit of a softer side to her. Or she feels guilt, and she feels ashamed for what she's done. Maybe, I don't know.
She was in the show from 84 to 85.
It's a long run, isn't it?
Yeah, she was in 94 episodes. Although, by comparison, she was in 1,059 episodes of Neighbours.
Wow.
Between 1999 and 2006, 2008 and 2011, then 2016, 2017, and then 2019 was her last sort of appearance. I was kind of hear that she was best friends with, Susan Kennedy.
Jackie Woodburn,
yeah.
Do they have much interaction in Prisoner?
This is what I'm trying to sort of work out. That sounds a bit like if they did cross over, it would have been her second era.
Yeah.
I really don't remember.
Yes, because isn't it when Reb comes back from the other prison, the Barnhurst lot are all like, "Oh, you're Reb Keenan. We've heard about you," and they've got like they're kind of expecting her to be one thing, and she's completely different. But I don't think I remember much interaction between Julie and Reb.
No, Julie's in it from 537 to 628. I can't remember what we said.
It would have been all of like Reb Keen too, wouldn't it, when she comes back after the electric shock treatment? But I don't think there was that many scenes where they were. I don't think they were like particularly friends in it, or
no.
I don't really think Reb had any friends, did she, in the later bit? But I remember there was a lot of scenes with Lou where Lou was kind of trying to get her to. She was like, "Come on, Reb, like be yourself. You don't have to pretend with me." But Reb genuinely couldn't remember what she'd been like before the electric shock treatment, unless it was all a big act.
I think we should keep Jackie Woodburn for another episode because she's like soap royalty, but and she and is in a lot of other soaps in smaller roles. But sorry.
No, you tell me, because you'd done some prep I hadn't.
Well, I know it's just one that always interests me. I'm not saying she's a favourite character. It's just interesting that she's in Australia at this time, because I know her from being in the UK sort of 10 years before or more than that.
Okay.
Is Annette Andre playing Camilla Wells, which she only does for like 4 episodes. But she's a radio.
Is it only 4 episodes?
Well, that's what it says. A radio show hostess and journalist who arrives at Wentworth as a celebrity inmate for not paying a parking fine. Which
Bobby calls a bucket mouth, doesn't she?
That sounds a bit like a repeat of one or two of the other plot, like where you've had someone who's famous or well known who comes in and expects to be treated sort of, sort of specially. I know Annette Andre from Randall and Hawkirk, deceased from the 60s.
Okay, yeah.
But in a minute we'll look and see what else she does. And she is actually Australian, which perhaps I didn't realise.
So she must have come to Britain and then gone back.
That way round. She's still alive. She is 85. She's a little bit younger than my dad.
And a little bit older than mine.
She moved to the UK in 1963. Oh, she was once linked romantically with George Best.
Wow.
And she turned down a proposal of marriage from Benny Hill.
As you would.
She was doing TV as early as 57. Presumably the stuff I'm seeing before 63 is all Australian. She was in a quite early episode of The Avengers in 1964. I mean, she's in loads of things. She's in Emergency Ward 10. I'm just trying to pick the names of things that shows that have kind of sort of lasted the test of time, or maybe we might have heard of. The Human Jungle, I've heard of that, and Sergeant Cork, I've heard of that.
So these are British shows?
These are British shows now. In 66, she was in something called Adam Adamant Lives, which I'm aware of.
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
I've heard of that.
That's about a guy who gets frozen, like for a Victorian. I think it's Victorian. I'm sorry if it's Edwardian or something, but let me have a look. When I get this right, Victorian. Yeah, it was created by the person who created Doctor Who, but it was also kind of considered as a sort of BBC's version of the Avengers, having a sort of swashbuckling hero. But yeah, he'd been suspended in ice or suspended in animation in Victorian age, and then woken up in 1966. So it was sort of a little bit more sci-fi than. She was in 5 episodes of The Saint between 64 and 67. One of those things where each time she appeared, she played a different character. She was in The Baron. She was in The Dick Emery Show. She was in The Prisoner. That's quite a high-profile one.
The Prisoner.
The Prisoner, yes.
Absolutely. She must be the only actor that was in both The Prisoner and Prisoner. I can't think there would be anybody else that would have done both of them.
That's quite cool, yeah.
So maybe she's our ultimate prisoner actress then.
Even though she, Randall Hochkirk, she was in it for 25 episodes, which was as long as it ran. She played a character called Jeannie Hopkirk, not Jeannie Dryden. She was in The Persuaders in an episode, and it just looks like she did like an episode of The New Avengers. She's in an episode of Return of the Saint. So she must be one of the few people. I don't know, maybe not, but she might.
So
be
that was late.
That was
late 70s. To like late 70s now, yeah.
Yeah. So she was in The Saint and Return of the Saint, which I don't know how many people have done that. Oh, and she was in the Avengers and the New Avengers, which I'm not sure how many people did that. I mean, there will be people who are in both for sure. But she was in Cop Shop for 15 episodes.
Yeah, she plays a really it's a really tragic set of circumstances. Really, the character she plays in Cop Shop, she's a single mother. And at that point, George Malaby had left Cop Shop, and Donovan had left. Jason Donovan's father, Terence, he'd left Cop Shop. That they were like the senior police officer, and they'd brought in another character, and he'd been in it for probably about 6 or 7 months, and she played the love interest for him. And I think she's supposed to be perhaps a little bit older than him because she's got a teenage kid, and it's that whole thing that he's like the head of the detectives in Cop Shop, and he meets this woman, and they start having a bit of a romance, and the teenage kid can't really cope with it, but they clearly fall in love with each other. And the story plays out, and in real life, the actor had decided he'd had enough after about 7 or 8 months, and it was time to leave. So it was all worked out that they were going to get married, and that would be his exit. But rather tragically, the actor was actually killed. Literally, I think they were just about to film the wedding scene. They might have already filmed, because I think with the you always get that thing with Australian shows, don't you, where they film the outdoor bit one week and then the studio bit the week after for the same episode. So they'd done the outdoor shots of the wedding, but they hadn't done the week after, and tragically he was a biker, and he came off his bike and was killed. And it was literally just before the Christmas close down as well that year, so that was like a real tragedy for the show, that one of their main characters was actually killed. And you can see, I don't know how they did it, but clearly they've got one more week to film, and you can just see the professionalism of the staff, because their mate has just been killed, but they've obviously got to come in and film the scenes, and they had to do a rewrite of why he wasn't in the final. They had to intercut it with some of the scenes and stuff. So they'd obviously done that last minute rewrite, but it's just really sad. And you see the scene of Annette Andre and I can't remember the actor's name, but they have this wedding and they go off and they're really happy, and you just think it's so sad that he actually died literally the day after they filmed it.
So she played 2 characters, Yvonne Holmes and Elizabeth Bacos, which is the one that's...
I think it's Yvonne that's the character that is the one that he marries.
Yeah, because she's in 15 episodes. So.
Sergeant Finelli. And that was a bit of a twist as well, because is it Skyways, the one that we haven't mentioned? Skyways, but that was another Australian drama, which I think Tina Bursill was in, and that's set in an airport. And I think Finelli was the character. He's a really tall guy with a big handlebar mustache, and he's like the head of security at the airport, but he was a former police officer. And I think the story was that something murky had gone on, and he'd had to leave the police, and that was why he'd taken up a role in the airport. So because he was such a popular character, and as I said, Terence Donovan had left Cop Shop, they were looking for another character. They actually stole the character from Skyways and put him into Cop Shop. All this previous stuff that's gone on has been resolved, and he can now come back and work as a police officer again. So they carry the character from one show to another, and he was kind of like the boss for almost one sort of season.
I don't know whether she did stage work in the Andre, but Prisoner is one of her last roles. I mean, considering she's still alive till today. So whether she's done
a lot. She did a lot.
Although weirdly, she did a film in 2017, but I don't know if that, what context that is. There's not even a clickable link on that. But I'll tell you what, though, after Prisoner, the same year she did Prisoner, she went back to the UK. So she had that Australia. So, she was in something in '82 called Taurus Rising, which was a replacement.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, that was an Australian soap that
didn't work, did it?
Yeah, it only ran for 21 episodes. It was supposed to be their sort of attempt, and one of the few attempts that they had of doing a
the kind of high end soap,
Dallas,
a bit more like a Dallas or a Dynasty.
Yeah, she was the main character of the Brent family, at least. Mike Brent was played by Andrew Clark. Now,
wow, Andrew Clark. We could do a whole episode about him as well. Might be for other reasons.
Yeah, he was in Sons and Daughters as
Prisoner,
and I just wondered what their relationship was supposed to be in that show, because I don't know if he'd be married to her or whether he'd be her son. I
think he'd be her son, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and
she always comes across as quite a happy person. I think in a lot of her work, she seems quite happy and content and smiling. And I know the scenes that she does in Cop Shop, there's some bad stuff happen, but she seems quite a positive person with the Yvonne character. And when she was Camilla Wells in Prisoner, she was quite a smart person, wasn't she?
Yeah. It doesn't tell me a lot about Taurus Rising. Betty Lucas, should I know that name?
Oh, no. Betty Lucas, she is, isn't she Clara in Prisoner? The one that runs into Steve Wilson's office and said, "I'm going to be arrested. I've embezzled all this money, darlings.
Yes.
I gave it all to charity, darlings."
Yeah, she's definitely influenced on some of the characters that are in the Shylock podcast without me realising.
I always find it really interesting when you see. Now, tell me if Betty Lucas was in Cop Shop, because I seem to think she was. And my memory of it was it's a guest role that she plays, and she is completely the opposite of Clara. I think she's some kind of battered housewife or alcoholic person who's quite distressed. And you think this in Prisoner, we see her as this, oh darlings, kind of socialite character who's got isn't she like a really high level mathematician as well? She's like a human computer. And yet in Cop Shop, the character she played was the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
That's interesting. She is in Cop Shop. You get 2 points. Ding ding ding. She's in Cop Shop more than once though, and playing the same character, which is interesting. She plays Mary Reynolds in 1978 for 2 episodes, and then after she's played Clara, she comes back as Mary Reynolds in 1980 and does 2 episodes then. Although, no, I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, I can't imagine
that's the mistake because the episode numbers are the same. Somebody's made a boo-boo. She was in the Young
Somebody's
Doctors,
done a typo.
Yeah, she was.
She was
in the Young Doctors as Sophie Bertram for 3 episodes in 1979. But that will be beyond the box set.
Yeah, I just wish they'd release more of them. I'm sure they would sell.
Which is one of the reasons I hadn't started, because I wanted to kind of know there was a bit of a.
If any of your listeners out there are involved in we need to get more of Young Doctors available, because it's really good, and the people would buy it, or even if they could just stream it.
Yeah, Marina Findlay was in Taurus Rising. She was Lainey Dobson in Prisoner.
I follow her on Instagram. She's an artist now.
Yeah, Laura Banning in Sons and Daughters, and Lucy Dunlop in the.
That's right. And Laura, isn't she the character that tries to seduce David, but he's not interested?
Yeah, I'm trying to place who.
Which you think, well, she's a lot younger than him.
Yeah.
This seems to be a thing in them. I've noticed this watching a lot of classic TV. The whole kind of relationship between the older man and the younger woman feels a bit creepy now, but back then it seemed to be a bit more of a commonplace thing.
Georgie Sterling. Sorry, Georgie Sterling.
Georgie Sterling.
Do you know who she is? She isn't in Prisoner, but she was May Walters in Sons and Daughters. She's in Taurus Rising.
Oh yeah, the woman at Fiona's at the guest house.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of them have been in Homicide or Division 4 or Matlock. And
do you think that was realistic? Just mentioning Georgie Sterling. Do you think that was realistic that Fiona and May were prostitutes together?
It's hard to imagine.
I can't imagine May. I can't imagine the May character.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. I don't know whether it was just the wrong casting or they developed the character in the wrong way. But that sweet little old lady. There's no way that she would.
It was wartime.
Well, I know.
We're going to have to say goodbye in a moment, but I just wanted to say I finished my story about Annette Andre. So
sorry,
in 84, she went back to England, and from 84 to 85, she worked on Crossroads.
Wow.
I'm not saying that is the reason she stopped acting, but
maybe she was killed in the fire, Crossroads Motel fire.
Yeah, I'm not sure because that's before it didn't finish until. Well, I know it came back, but it continued to about 88. So she was in it when it was still a going concern, not at the end.
Wow.
Anyway.
Yep, she's got to be our most prolific actress out of the whole lot of them. That's been a great catch-up, hasn't it? And a great trip through some of the different careers of some of the actors of the parts that we've loved.
Yeah, and there are plenty more, but so we'll have to do it again. We'll be back in a moment, listeners, because we always do that bit at the end where we just talk about stuff, right? But anyway, so we're just pretending we're leaving. Well, Andy, it's sorry to see you go, but we'll be back. Thank you again. Thanks for listening, listeners.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me again.
And yes, well, goodbye for now.
See you soon. Who's your favourite screw, Paul? Save that for another day.
Well, you know, I do like Meg because she's all the way through, but there are times when she.
Let's talk about that next time. Who's your favourite screw?
Yeah, we haven't really talked about the staff yet at all, so that or perhaps fleetingly. So that we should definitely do next episode. Should definitely. There are still plenty of prisoners to talk about, but we should focus on the screws next time because
and the staff. Because it might be it might be that your favourite was Mrs. O'Regan or Wendy, the receptionist, who has one of the best lines in the whole show.
Which one?
But we'll talk about that next time when we do the staff.
Yeah, the
prisoners, but not the prisoners.
Yeah,
we'll do an episode on that.
We could. I would say we could do an episode of like. Not even characters who are in the warders or prisoners, but
people outside.
Less tends to be written about them because they're barely like major characters.
And we haven't mentioned Rita or Kath Maxwell or Merle, or I was going to get your thoughts on Alison Page as well, everybody's favourite electric shock character. Because I watched those episodes a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
She's the woman who is her husband a builder, and the kid's got really bad spots, and he runs away from home, and she's in prison, and she tries to kill herself with a coat hanger in the electric socket, doesn't she?
Some of these I'll be reminded of, but with my watch, hopefully I'll be in season 2.
Where that's
be next door.
Where that's in season 3. Where that's interesting is she is in an episode of Cop Shop, the actress that plays Alison, in a lesbian relationship with Olivia Hamnet, who was Dr. Kate Peterson, and to see Kate Peterson and Alison Page as a couple is just wow. And I know a lot of people have really criticised the Alison Page character and said, oh, she's hysterical and one-dimensional and she doesn't really add anything and she just whines. But when you actually see her playing a different role, you realise she's actually quite a good actress.
I gotta go now. Bye. Gotta go. Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Yeah, goodbye.
Wow. Really? No kidding.
Thank you, darling. And you too. Bye-bye. That was beautifully done.
Oh, that sounded good.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
Oh dear. What's going on now? Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Let's go.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
That is so cringe, oh my god. You're a man of culture as well.
I saw Olivia Hamnet. I recently watched, what was it called? Return to Eden, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed by Return to Eden, considering I heard so much about it, and suddenly I found, and I always liked the idea of watching it, but then I found it on YouTube, and it was fine, but I don't think I like Australian soaps when they try and be Dynasty or Dallas, because I'm a bit, about Dynasty and Dallas anyway. I have gone through Dynasty and there is, there are fun moments. I don't necessarily think the 15-minute episodes always work for it, because there does seem to be a lot of padding at times in the shoulders as well as in the script. But
we've said this before, though, haven't we? That like with British soap operas, it's almost like they want to focus on working class communities and poorer people, and then the American ones are all about the glamour and the rich people, and it was almost like Australia was that bit in the middle that had a little bit of both, but perhaps not quite as grimy as some of the British ones, but perhaps not as wealthy as the American ones.
I like the richer family dynamic in Sons and Daughters, but I don't know, Return to Eden didn't really do that much for me at all.
No.
And I started watching the miniseries and kind of watched 1 or 2 episodes, and I probably will watch it because there's only really 1 season. But I don't think it's the pinnacle of Australian soap.
No, is that available online, or have you got
YouTube.
the DVDs?
It's on YouTube. Yeah. So yeah. Have you ever seen it all the way through, or have you?
Do you know? I have a memory that I kind of watched it when it was first shown, when it was live on TV, but how old would we have been then?
Yeah, pretty.
Were we quite?
Yeah, we were. Well, we were probably over 10, but under 50.
12, 13.
Yeah.
So probably my attention span. And because it was it a mini series? Was it?
Yeah, the original thing was a mini series, and that was all right. Although the episodes are quite long, I think.
And then you've got the episodes afterwards.
Yeah,
I vaguely remember it being shown, and I remember watching it, but because isn't Peter Tapano in it and Rebecca Gilling, and isn't there something? Doesn't somebody get attacked by a shark or something?
Yeah, someone's presumed that they're dead, and they have a. I mean, really, it reminded me of like one of the 80s sort of statutory type films, or these thrillers, except that because it's like 3, is it 90-minute episodes? It's certainly
would have probably been best as a movie.
I remember the mini-series episodes, but I don't really have any memory of watching it as an ongoing drama. No, it's probably not one of the best ones, is it?
No, but anyway, I'm glad I watched it.
This is just the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Well, gotta tell you, I didn't expect that.
What the hell just happened on this show? I mean, seriously, reverse it, because I lost. What's going on? What happened?
Man, was that worth it or not? Oh my goodness, that was a darling little shoe. Wow, I love that one. Great show, Paul. 706. Wow, good. Wow, shoes.
761.
Listeners, we're actually recording on New Year's Eve. So this is officially the last episode.
This is your last episode of the year.
Well, it's not
recorded.
Yes, it's the last episode I've recorded.
Because you're not going to squeeze anybody else in after me today.
No, I was going to record with someone before you, and that fell through. So, no, this is the last episode of 2024, but it won't go out until 2025. And I think all of January is going to be mainly catching up with what I didn't get out in December. But anyway, listeners don't need to know that. But just bringing that, I just thought you might find it interesting, listeners. But
oi, that's your lot.
Oh, everyone's a critic.
Et voilà. You can always call me.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay, stopping recording now.